Hey there, I'm Andrew, founder and owner of Stoke Ventures. I help people just like you strategize their product launches. 95% of businesses fail, so it takes more than a cool logo to be successful. Putting a strategy together for your business is you do it in the beginning, but then it's like a living, breathing document. It's not like a traditional business plan. You might put it together, it might be dozens of pages or whatever, and you've got all these, like you said, hypothetical charts and situations, and really the idea is just to take it to a bank and get a loan. You prove to them that you have this idea and that you're backing it up with all this stuff. But I think even banks are probably seeing through that.
Okay, Top Gun.
Top Gun, the movie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite movie of all time.
Welcome to my show, Jagged with Jasravee. Conversations at the edge with thought leaders from the marketing, branding, and business world. Hi, Andrew. It's so nice to have you here.
Hey, Jasravee. It's great to be here. I'm super excited to talk with you guys about entrepreneurship, starting a business, and launching products. So very excited to get started.
Super.
Right. So, a lot of time, entrepreneurs or people who have ideas about products, they do not focus on strategy. So what do you feel is the role of strategy, when you are starting any new business or you're thinking about a new product, and, and things like you're thinking about customers and stuff like, your value proposition, stuff like that.
Yeah, it's a great question. So strategy is so important with any business launch, because you have to have a strategy to know where you're going and how you're going to get there. What are your business goals and how are you going to achieve those goals? And then more specifically, I think the most important things about a strategy are, first, your market research, understanding who your competitors are, who your audience is, and really clearly identifying what your value proposition is. I think a lot of people they have this great idea, they just go full speed ahead with it, and they might not really they think they understand what their product is or their service is and who they're helping. But I think a lot of people don't really have a really crystal clear, vision or idea of exactly what their value proposition is. So that's important. It's also important to put together business and financial modeling, so you understand that the numbers work out, and that you understand what your business model really is. Like, how are you going to make money? What is the model for that? And then what is your marketing and sales strategy to connect with your target audience, to connect your value proposition with your target audience that you identified kind of at the beginning of the whole strategy process.
And how iterative you think is this process? Because you might start off with something, but over the course of your developing the product or understanding your marketplace, you might have new insights or you might have new feedback. So how do you iterate and how do you tweak and refine this process? And the other question about the business model is, how elaborate do you want it to be? Because all these big Excel sheets, etc., they might just be hypothetical stuff, which is just pie in the sky. They may not be very useful, until it gives you some kind of a roadmap, but doesn't really it doesn't really pan out like that. So what are your views on that?
Yeah, you're 100% right. The strategy process and putting a strategy together for your business is you do it in the beginning, but then it's like a living, breathing document. It's not like a traditional business plan. You might put it together, it might be dozens of pages or whatever, and you've got all these, like you said, hypothetical charts and situations, and really the idea is just to take it to a bank and get a loan. You prove to them that you have this idea and that you're backing it up with all this stuff. But I think even banks are probably seeing through that now, because you're just making all that stuff up, a lot of it, right? And you have to make sure, especially the numbers, so you have to make sure that you're not getting too lost in those hypothetical details. You want to do good, solid research, and based on the products that are already out there based on the features that and products that customers are demanding. You want to make sure that you're addressing those of those needs, and you're building your strategy based on that. But then put a good solid strategy together and then start testing. I definitely recommend that people don't get too lost in their business planning in the beginning, because it really comes down to testing. The more you do that, the more you'll understand how your business actually works and how it should be structured to be successful. So you're always testing, going back to that strategy, refining it, improving it, and then figuring out how to take it forward.
Right. A good analogy would be to build the plane while flying it, right? So
exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And it really feels like that too, and it is a balance, it is, you want to make sure that you build enough of the plane that it takes off, so you have to have something solid there, and you're basing your understanding of how to build that plane off of, what you can already find out there, you got to, do good research for sure.
So, Andrew, you mentioned market research. What would be the aspects of market research that you would say ideally must be looked at before getting a new product out or starting a new business?
I definitely think that good market research should be done like right after you have an idea. So once you have that idea, you should really start to research what your competitors are, see if there's anybody already. I mean, I've come up with so many what I think are great ideas. They might not actually be, but I think it's a great idea. I start doing research and I realize, hey, there are already very strong competitive products out there, and I may be able to bring my product to market, compete with them, and be maybe a little bit different, but sometimes it may not be worth that. You want to have take a product to market that is as unique as possible, and that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be competitive products. There's always competitive solutions out there, whether they're competitive products or whether they're just something that's already been done. Like I use this example about washing machines, where before the first washing machine was invented, people were, washing their clothes by hand. So the washing machine still, even though there weren't other washing machines out there, they still had to compete with the process of, manually washing clothes by hand. And they had to convince people that, hey, the price tag of buying a washing machine was worth it, because then you could, free up some time to do other things instead of washing your clothes by hand. So really dialing in and fully understanding your audience is really, really critical. I see it with people, including myself. I start to run a Facebook ad on a product, and I realize that when I go into dialing in the audience on that ad, which is even more important than the creative when you're running ads, sometimes I'll realize, wow, I actually thought I knew the audience, but I didn't know it as well as I really did, because once you start to dial that in, you realize who your audience is, and it's so important to get that right. Even run pre-sales. You can run a pre-sale, have people either express some interest in your product or service by putting in their email address. So you're creating a list, which if the sooner you can do that, the better. They could even put down like $1 deposit just to show even more interest in actually buying your product or service. And, and then you can ask them some questions. You can follow up with emails, with an email campaign to them to get a feel for what their pain points really are. And you can start to structure your product around that. And, with that worst case scenario, you get, a few $100 deposits. And if the product doesn't go anywhere, you return that money and that's it, so it's not a huge risk to do something like that too.
And now because a lot of platforms are available now, things like Amazon or eBay in the US. the companies like Flipkart in India, which are sort of in which Walmart has invested. So a lot of these
Hmm.
platforms are available for entrepreneurs or product guys, and to have to directly so reach out to customers. Which the slang for that is D2C, brands and products. So what role you foresee for these kind of platforms strategically for an entrepreneur to for his go to market strategies?
Hmm. Yeah, I think they're really important, but I think you also have to make sure that you build your own sandbox. And what I mean by that is when you're working with these platforms, you're at their mercy.
Right.
You play by their rules. They have an advantage. Like Amazon is massive. They definitely have a built-in advantage that you can post a product, you can list a product on Amazon today, and you may very well get sales by the end of the day. It can be very, very quick to see results. That doesn't mean that you're going to scale this massive business that quickly. It actually takes, it's a totally different story getting a few sales versus scaling something on any of these platforms. But I would highly recommend, definitely use them. We sell grass racks on Amazon, but the disadvantages is that you play by their rules, and if something goes wrong in the back end with a listing or something, you've, especially with Amazon, it's really difficult. Like, they're a pain in the butt to deal with. I'll just put it out there. They value their customers a lot more than they value their partners, their business partners. It's a shame. I wish they kind of did a little differently, but it is what it is. So you just have to know that it's going to be frustrating, and you're gonna have to deal with that kind of stuff. In the long run, I would make sure that you're always focused on driving traffic and sales to your own website, something that you control. That you can, if you need to make a change on the back end, it's you or your developer that's doing it. And then to take it a one step further is make sure that you are building an email list, because that is like truly, of all the things that I've seen in marketing, and it's the only thing that you have full control of. You have this list, you can run it through different email autoresponders. If one autoresponder, like let's say, MailChimp goes bankrupt tomorrow,
Right.
you just take your list and move it somewhere else, and you can keep your campaigns running because you own that list.
Right. Right. So another area where you specialize in is on how to make right decisions for manufacturing your product. Stuff like finding strategic partners for manufacturing, use of automation, and stuff like how to leverage things like a global supply chain. I also heard you somewhere where you said that it's great to like prototype in your own market like the US, and maybe look at scaling up the product maybe at a cheaper location. So how do you look at all these
Mhm.
manufacturing decisions when you're looking at a new product development?
Yeah, it's manufacturing is really important for it in the development process, and I think sometimes it's a little overlooked or not undervalued, but it's hard to see that far ahead sometimes when somebody's just starting out with a development process. Even some good product development companies, they're not really necessarily taking manufacturing into consideration from the beginning. I think it's so important, um, to make sure that right from the beginning you're considering manufacturability, what processes are going to be used. Are there going to be plastic parts that are going to be injection molded, or metal parts that are machined, or sheet metal parts, and figure out how to develop a product that works really well, and that has the features that your customers need and want. But also, it's so important to make sure that you're designing the product so it can be efficiently manufactured. So you're lowering your cost of goods, your assembly time. That's really important. And I've seen some really great, really cool looking designs, and I'll dig into the CAD models and the design of it, the detailed design of it, and I'm like, oh wow, this is cool looking, but it can't be manufactured. You can't actually make this thing, or it's really, really difficult. So it's so important to understand that from the beginning, and make sure that you're optimizing the cost.
That's a great answer.
And Andrew, would there be any other elements in developing a great product? What would be the other elements, for example, packaging or a story or a communication consistent line? How would you describe this?
Yeah. The first thing, again, is making sure that you're solving at least one major pain point for people. So that's the first thing. Design for usability. Make sure that it's going to be nice and easy to use, and that if there's some kind of wow factor to it or some cool factor, like that's worth sharing. We have a wine cork, like a wine bottle opener, and instead of screwing it in and then yanking it out, this thing, it's like a cylinder, and you just put it on top of the wine bottle, and as soon as the corkscrew hits the cork, it starts turning and wedging its way into the cork, and then it actually then pulls it out. So you literally you hold it there. You don't have to twist or anything. And it's so cool that I'm talking about it right now on a podcast, because it's just got this really cool wow factor. So if you can make it so that make your products that it's really easy to use, and that's something that we do at Stoke with our product development service, is we're always trying to figure out how can we make this as simple as possible, as easy to and cost effective to manufacture, as fun to use as possible. We want to make sure that we're creating an experience with the product that people are excited to share. And then you're right, you can create a story with the product, but also your packaging. Consumer packaging is really important. I would say there's a caveat to that though. If you're selling into brick and mortar stores, consumer packaging is really, really important. If you're selling direct to consumer, D2C, through Amazon, through your website or whatever else, it's not as important. I wouldn't necessarily get too hung up on that. Like with Grass Racks, we designed consumer packaging years ago, thinking that we were going to be in stores, and we're not in any stores. We just sell directly to consumers online, and we haven't used our packaging designs at all. We pack all of our parts into a box and ship it off, and that's it. So, but yeah, good packaging can tell a really good story. But even if you don't have or need that packaging, make sure that your product is consistent with your branding, and that you're just telling the story of your product clearly and concisely.
And there's also a utility function of the packaging, isn't it? These stuff like minimizing the shipping costs and stuff like that, and maximizing the space within the package. Do you look at those issues also, the utility parts of packaging also?
Oh yeah, definitely. It has to the packaging has to hold the product, right? It has to make sure that you can take the product or ship the product from point A to point B safely, where the product isn't going to fall out, or you're not going to have any issues with the product being crushed, or the packaging, getting damaged, crinkled, bent, whatever. And then if possible, you see some really creative packaging where you're able to kind of experience the product before you buy it, so it's the kind of like, they used to have a little opening on some blister pack packaging where you could like feel the product even, you could, if there was like a unique texture or something to it. So it's important to look at ways that you can interact, that you can have the customer interact with your product before they even buy it. And people are getting more and more creative with their just a box. You think about Apple products. I just got a new pair of AirPods, and they just have a simple white box. That's it. But they've thought of every single detail in that box. It's a nice, solid, double, triple, quadruple walled, car. It's not this like flimsy thing. It's very solid. They've gotten a fit from the top and the bottom of the box to fit so perfectly that it's kind of crazy. And just like the wrapping around the outside, and like there's a little pull tab to get that started, so you can open up the wrapping and then get into the box. And just they thought of every single little detail to make it, even though that packaging is probably pretty cheap to make, they've made it this premium experience to open up that product. And you got to think about that too, is not just having packaging communicate, hold the product and also communicate your brand story, but also if you can make it an experience to open, that's another thing that's really important. And that's probably the most challenging thing to do, I think. Nice.
And we can't be too kind, right?
Yeah, and I hope you're wearing a bulletproof jacket also.
Okay, I love it. Yeah, just a blue T-shirt, but it's okay. It'll keep me safe, I think.
Favorite travel destination?
Hawaii.
Your most often used phrase?
Oh man, most often used phrase. That's so awesome. Oh man, I almost got.
Oh man, no man is also one more.
Oh man, yeah. Oh man, that might be it. Yeah.
Okay. One thing no one knows about you.
One thing nobody knows about me. I'm a pretty relaxed guy, but I'm also I can be very serious. So I can, yeah. And I think some people know that about me, but it can be shocking sometimes.
Okay. I'm letting this one go. Word of caution. Be brief.
Yeah. Too many words. Yeah. It's like, I got to wrap that up quicker.
Yeah, let's wrap it. Preferred food cuisine.
I really like Mediterranean food.
Okay. Top Gun.
Top Gun, the movie?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite movie of all time.
Okay.
It actually is. That's the truth.
Yeah, we know that. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. Favorite Avenger. It's like, why did you not do it last time? Okay. Your favorite Avenger or superhero? Is there
Iron Man, for sure.
Okay. Grandfather's best advice?
My mom's dad's best advice was, do what you really love to do and the money will follow.
One thing you'd like to tell Jeff Bezos?
Oh man. Hey, great job with the customer experience, but work harder on the back end in dealing with your vendors.
Okay. What would you tell your 18-year-old self?
Oh man. Learn more about business.
Okay. Best quality of Elon Musk?
He just doesn't care what people think about him.
Yeah.
A great one.
Yeah. So Andrew, tell us, where can our audiences find you online, and also about your podcast?
So you can find out more about me and what I do at stokeventures.com, and then thatentrepreneurlife.com is the podcast. It's been an awesome experience with Jagged, with Jasravee. What a cool show! What a cool platform! I love the rapid fire questions at the end. That's just like a really fun way to get engaged. And for your audience or people thinking about listening to you, it's a really fun show. You guys both play off each other really well, and you're going to learn a lot about entrepreneurship and business, product development, manufacturing, and all these things that are involved with launching a product in a business. So I highly recommend you tuning in.